Hello and welcome to the fourth of the bite-sized webinars from Companies House. This is the fourth of 5 short webinars to help you to understand how to manage and run your limited company. So we've only got one to go now. If you missed any of the earlier webinars, where have you been? But all is not lost, as you can still watch them from our webinar library. And you'll find the link in the handout, which I'll point to you in just a few minutes when I do the housekeeping. But you can also now find them on our YouTube channel as well. So 2 ways you can get those. As I said, this is the fourth of 5, so don't forget to sign up for the last one, which will be coming up next Wednesday. My name is Gary Townley, and I'm part of the communications team here at Companies House. We should have quite a good turnout today, so we'll give a couple of moments while people join us. So first of all, let me just tell you about the series so far. In the first bite-sized webinar, we covered directors' responsibilities and how to register for an online account. And then we also looked at some of the digital tools and services that we provide. In the second, we covered what can be filed online and how to file online. And then we also touched on our products of follow and proof. So again, you can watch those again if you want to. And in the third, we were joined by colleagues from the Insolvency Service. And they talked about what to do if you think your company may be coming insolvent. So again, another one to watch there. And as I said, you can watch all those from our webinar library or indeed from our YouTube channel. We'll look at today's agenda in just a moment, but I'll quickly tell you about the last webinar in the series. So next Wednesday, that's the 28th, we'll be joined by colleagues from the Business Support Helpline, and we'll look at some of the questions we've had during the series and some of the questions that the Business Support Helpline get on a regular basis. So again, it's worth signing up to that to get answers to those most frequently asked questions. And now talking about asking questions, you're probably familiar with this by now, but for anybody joining us new, I'll take you through the look of the screen. Now, in front of you, you will see the presentation slides. In the corner, you will see the tool panel. And if you would like to ask a question, you will see on the tool panel that there is a question box. Now, to make that box bigger, simply click on the icon that looks like an arrow coming out of the box. That's on the right-hand side. That makes the box bigger, and then you can then type your question into that box, and one of our experts will try to answer that for you. If you are listening or watching on a smartphone or a tablet, you can ask questions by using the question mark symbol on the screen in front of you. So before we get started, let's see if that works, get you familiar with it. So as today's webinar is about intellectual property, let's have a vote on what is your favorite invention. And if you can also tell us if you have anyone watching with you. So just put your favorite invention and then +1 or +2, etc. in that box. For me, I would say that my favorite invention is the thermos flask. It keeps hot things hot and it keeps cold things cold. But how does it know? That's the question. So if yours is a washing machine or a fridge, just pop it in the box, plus if you're listening with someone else. Well, just wait a few seconds to see what yours are. And before anyone asks, you will be getting a link to the recording of the presentation sent to you. And usually it's about 24 hours, and that's automatically sent to you. Now, as I said, in addition to me, there's a team of experts in the background awaiting your questions. So if you have any questions about today's webinar or any of the previous webinars, pop them in the box now or during as we go along throughout the presentation. As I said, we can only answer general questions. We can't go into specific cases. At the end of the webinar, we will send you a short survey just to see if it's been useful to you, and if you can complete that, that would be of great use to us. And also in the tool pane, last but not least, you will see that there is a handout that you can download, and that contains all the links in today's presentation and other useful links and information that you will find useful. So today's agenda, as I've mentioned earlier, we've only got 20 minutes. So if you're sitting comfortably, Just a quick reminder of who we are. Companies House is a government agency. We're sponsored by the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Our role is to incorporate and dissolve limited companies. We take information from those companies and we make that information available to the public. So in this bite-sized session, we've been joined by Emma from the Intellectual Property Office. IP is often overlooked by many businesses, but it can prove to be a very, very valuable asset. And to explain more, we have Emma, and I'm just going to hand over the screen to her now. So Emma, hello, good morning. Would you like to take this forward?
Morning, Gary. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yep.
Yep, so we're at the same point that you left, which is always a good thing. Yeah, morning everyone. My name's Emma Richards, as Gary said, and I've been working at the Intellectual Property Office for 22 years now, so I've got quite a bit of experience on intellectual property and everything that's involved. Now, I'm aware that we've only got 20 minutes to run through this, which is quite a short amount of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a basic overview of what intellectual property rights are. And then once you've established which one of those rights are most applicable to your business, there are a number of ways you can get in touch with us and take that forward. So I'm a business engagement manager at the Intellectual Property Office, and my responsibility really is to help businesses and give them as much guidance and support as I possibly can to help them with their IP strategy and help them through the process. And what I'm going to cover today is what the main intellectual property rights are. So the main intellectual property rights, and you may have heard of these, are patents, trademarks, copyright, and registered design. And firstly, I'm going to cover trademarks. So in a nutshell, a trademark is basically protection for your brand within a business. So you've heard a lot of different things over the last few webinars about how to register your business at Companies House and all the things that are involved with that. If you go into the trouble of doing that and you create a brand around the business, it really makes sense to protect that brand, and you protect it with a trademark. And normally you would be thinking, okay, I've got a name, I've got a logo. They're the two things that really I want to stop anyone else stealing from me. So I would like a monopoly over that logo and that name. And sure, you can do that, but it doesn't have to stop there. There's a number of things that you can register. So first and foremost, the advice would be, yeah, register your name. If you don't want anyone else to copy that name and sell similar goods and services to you, then it's a really good idea to protect that and have a monopoly over it. But you can protect your logo as well. You can also protect colour themes. As you can see on the screen, we have that distinctive kind of orange that you may recognise, and we're all missing at the moment. But when we get back into the year, if you've booked a flight using EasyJet, you will know where to go because you'll be looking for the orange signs everywhere. So that is distinctive and it is protected to EasyJet, and that's what they've protected as their trademark. You can also register a shape. Again, when we arrive at an airport, when we can do so, you may come across this particular bar of chocolate that we all head for when we're going through the airport. And of course, it is a Toblerone. How do we know it's a Toblerone? Because it's got a distinctive shape. And it's really synonymous to their brand. So they've protected that because it's important to them. And you've got Asda at the bottom there, protecting a movement. You know, we're aware in the advertising of Asda that distinctive 2 taps on the back pocket is connected with Asda. So they've also protected that movement as a trademark. You can protect music as a trademark. A lot of companies use jingles and music. If you think of McDonald's, for example, every time you hear that distinctive tune, you immediately think of McDonald's, and it makes you hungry, and then off you pop to McDonald's. So that's a reason they've protected that as a trademark. So the point of this really is you don't have to just limit yourself to your business name and your logo, but it's a good place to start. And there are restrictions around trademarks. So in order to obtain a trademark, it must be distinctive. So you can't be descriptive over the goods and services that you want protection in. And to give you a good example of that, Apple is a really good trademark for computer products. But if you want to protect it for a greengrocers, for example, it does describe part of the product that you may be selling. So that would not really be accepted as a trademark. Other things that restrict you from trademarks are the use of offensive words and anything that's connected to kind of the royal family or protected emblems, that type of thing. So as long as it doesn't describe what you're using it for, then potentially you can have a trademark on it. So once you're satisfied with that, the advice then is to search for an earlier trademark. Obviously, you're not going to be able to use or protect something that already exists. And we will search for earlier trademarks, and we won't refuse them if we think you're applying for Virgin, Newport, for cosmetics. We will get in touch with the Virgin brand and let them know that you're applying for something similar to what they have. So then the responsibility is on them to object to your application. So the advice from us is to carry out a search on our website. It's a free search, and you could avoid any expensive mistakes in the future. And also it gives you an awareness of any competing marks within that territory. UK trademarks are protected across the UK. So there may be a small company trading in Bournemouth, and you may be in Scotland, and you may not even be aware of this company. It may be that when we contact that company and let them know that you're applying for something similar, they've got no desire to expand across the UK, you've got no desire to expand across the UK, so you could coexist together. But yeah, doing the search is a really good idea because it makes you aware of these problems that are easy to resolve prior to your search, but may be more difficult after you've applied for your trademark. And just bear in mind as well that application is a non-refundable fee. So if you apply for your trademark and it's refused, you won't have that application fee refunded. So that brings me on to the cost of a trademark. The cost for a UK trademark is £170. Now, I've talked about the goods and services that you want to be protected in quite a bit so far. And this is important because we need to identify whether there's earlier trademarks in a similar goods or service. And we're not going to know which goods and services you want protection in unless you identify them to us. And these are classified as 1 to 45. So you need to identify the classes that are applicable to your business and then submit them onto the application form, and we'll search for similar marks in a similar area. Because it is possible for trademarks to coexist. A good example of that would be Polo Mints, Polo Cars, Polo Aftershave. They're in completely different areas of goods and services, so there's not going to be an element of confusion with the public, and that's the key thing really. So one class is included in your application fee. If you find as though you fall across a number of classes, the additional classes are £50 per additional class. I'm not sure whether someone's off mute, but I can hear a little bit of clicking going on in the background. Don't know if that's distracting everyone else. Thank you. Don't you just love working in these times? European protection is also available for Europe. So if you feel as though you may want to expand your protection across Europe, then you would apply to the European office, and the cost of that is €850. You may want to expand even further, and there are systems available for you to do that as well. The Madrid Protocol allows you to submit one application to the World Intellectual Property Office, and you designate the countries that you want protection in. The more countries you designate, the more the cost is going to be. So there is a fee calculator available online if that's something you want to explore. So that's a very quick overview of trademarks. And now we're going to talk a little bit about copyright. If I didn't say earlier, there's no register for copyright. So there's an official register for trademarks, but there's no official register for copyright, which of course causes many problems, especially when someone's infringing your copyright, because there's no register to refer back to give you that proof that you own that particular creation. And as it's an automatic right, it covers a wide range of things. So it first and foremost protects literature and artistic works. And under that, you can protect a book, a film, music, sound recordings, photographs, paintings, manuals, databases. The list is endless, and dramatical works. So in the case of a book, initially there'd be an author for the book. So the author would have the original rights over that book as the author and the creator. As the author, then you would look to a publisher to publish your book, and then the publisher would make it look tidy, ready for publication. So they would have some publishing rights over the typographical arrangement of that book. With a film, usually a film is an adaptation of a book. So they would have to obtain rights from the author of the book in order to produce the film. And then there would be a number of people involved in the creation of a film, like script writers and CGI effect creators. The performers themselves would also have protection with copyright, as their performance is a creative work. Music, again, sometimes there's one person creating a song, sometimes there's two, sometimes there's many, and especially where there's musicians involved. And again, that kind of overlaps with sound recordings in the fact that once you go into a recording studio, the guys on the decks who are doing all of the really fancy stuff with your piece of work will then have the element of copyright. Photographs is a little bit easier. Usually there's one person taking the photograph, which means that the photographer owns the copyright on that photograph. With a painting, generally again, is one artist, so that makes it a little bit simpler. Manuals, in the terms of a business, if you're creating manuals for your products or processes within your business, there may be a group of people involved in the production of that. So that would be kind of a joint effort in terms of copyright, and databases along the similar line. Also, software is protected by copyright as well, and dramatic works, again, a similar kind of format to films, in that you write a play and you perform the play. So the performers, any music involved with it, would again have another layer of copyright. So it's quite complicated, which is why there's a lot of media and press around copyright infringement when it happens, because there's a lot of to and fro and arguing, and there's this importance that you have to prove that you created the work. So ownership can be questioned, and as I said, it's normally the first creator or author of the piece of work, which makes it simple. But if you're employed to create copyright as part of your employment, and if it's within your ordinary course of employment, the employer automatically owns the work. So if you're a web designer for a company and you're employed as a web designer, the company automatically owns that copyright because you're employed to create that copyright. But if you're a web designer and you own your own company, and then you're contracted to do a piece of work for a small business, and this is really important, because if you're a small business and you're thinking to yourself, I want to have a mobile app or a website for my business, you may not have the ability or the knowledge to create that yourself. So the obvious thing to do then would be to employ a contractor who has expertise in that area to come in and do that web design for you. You may provide the content for the web, or you may provide content for a mobile app. But essentially then they're going to own the copyright of that creation. So it's really important to have a contract in place if if that situation is something that's going to potentially happen in your company. So if you have a contract in place, make sure that a copyright is assigned back into your business. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a really complicated situation further down the line. And like with all IP rights, and with all kinds of property, so physical property and IP property, so intellectual property, is very similar in the fact that you can sell it, you can rent it on, you can give it away, you can pass it on to someone in your will. But with copyright, even if you do sell your rights on, you still have a moral right over how that work is used. So you still have the right to object to derogatory use of that work, and if it's connected to anything maybe political or religious that you don't believe in. So you still have the right to do that, and you still have the right to be acknowledged as the owner of the copyright. So copyright lasts for quite a long time. So it lasts for the lifetime of the creator plus 70 years after their death. I've mentioned a few exceptions to that, like publishers' rights, TV and radio broadcast rights, and sound recording rights are slightly different as well. But in a general sense, copyright will last for the lifetime of the creator plus 70 years after their death. So quite some time. And as there's no official copyright, so there's no trail to your work, the advice from us would be to record your work. Keep as much proof as you possibly can, even if you think it's unnecessary, just keep that proof. Because what you're going to need to do, if someone infringes your work, it's their word against yours. So if you've worked on a book, for example, you will have had lots of drafts. There may be emails sent back and forth to the publisher, that you may have written an original story, and you may have had conversations with people. So just keep all that proof and keep as much as you can. Use contracts where it's applicable. So again, if you're outsourcing work, make sure that the right contracts in place during those scenarios. And even if someone's infringing your work, you can look at it as an opportunity. So if someone's taken a photograph, you're a photographer, and someone's taken a photograph off your website and started using it in their literature, rather than going straight for an infringement case, maybe get in touch with them and say, oh, I can see that you're really interested in the work that I'm doing. I'll let you continue to use that work, but you pay me a licensing fee of XYZ. So sometimes it's a good opportunity if someone is using your work. They obviously like your work, so look at it as an opportunity. And even though there's no official registers, there are unofficial registers that exist in the UK. And I urge you to look into that, because they can guide you and help you with your proof. So quickly on to registered designs. It's quite straightforward, a registered design. What you're protecting with a registered design is the appearance of a product, not what it does, the idea behind it or the concept behind it, simply what it looks like. As you can see on the screen, it's pretty self-explanatory. They don't protect how a product functions, the material it's made from, how it's manufactured, or when the form is dictated by its function. So what I mean by that is, if it's got to be a particular shape to perform its job, like a key, for example, a key has to be that shape. So that would be exempt from design protection. But aside from that, you can protect a number of things, and it's relatively inexpensive. So it's £60 for one design, or £50 if you apply online. But if you look at this as a really cost-effective way of registering a number of products that would fall under registered design. So you can have up to 10 designs in one application for £70. And these designs don't have to be related products. So you may have a boutique, for example, and you may have handbags, shoes, jewelry, hats. And even though they're all different products, you can submit them on one application. So it's a really cost-effective way of having an IP right. So not much to say about designs. They last for 25 years and they can't be renewed after 25 years. And what we just ask for is a true representation of your product. So that could be a picture or an artistic impression, and you submit the application form to us, and then you'll receive the certificate as long as it conforms against all the regulations. On the flip side of that, you've got a patent, which is really complicated. So if you want to apply for a patent, really have a think about the fact that the process is going to be lengthy, is going to be detailed, is going to be complicated. It's probably going to cost you a lot of money, because we do advise you to use a patent attorney to apply for a patent. It's really difficult to obtain a patent if you apply as an individual applicant. But essentially, they protect an invention, what it does, how it works, and the technical function of it. The criteria really is that it has to be new, so it can't be done anywhere else in the world prior to submitting your application to us. And that's not whether it's been patented before, it's whether it's actually in existence. So make sure you do your research there. And some advice would be on that. If you want to discuss your invention with a third party, just make sure that there's confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure agreements in place, because they may be excited about what you're telling them and then disclose it somewhere else, and then your patent application will just fall on the first hurdle, and we don't want that to happen. If you are brave and you want to apply for a patent directly to us, it'll cost you around about £250. But like I said, if you are serious about applying for a patent, it's a technical document. There's a lot involved with it. So please seek some advice from a patent attorney before you do that. Quickly, just a little bit on confidentiality. The reason I popped that in there is because there are certain things within the business that can't be protected by the official forms of IP, but they will form part of your IP strategy. So things like processes and ideas and methods or customer lists, they're not going to be protected by an official form of IP, but you may want to keep them secret within your business to stop anyone else stealing them, like the KFC recipe, for example. That can't be protected with IP, so they keep it secret within the business. And the way to do that is to ensure that the employees are aware that this needs to be kept secret within the business by the use of NDAs and confidentiality agreements. So I'm very aware of the time, so just to go on and give you a couple of tips to take away. Respect other people's IP. Just because it's online doesn't mean say you can take it and use it. So please find out who owns anything that you fancy using. Decide if you want to protect and register your IP assets. There's no legal obligation to do so. It's entirely a business decision. Obviously, it's going to make life a lot easier for you. If someone infringes your brand, you've got a registered trademark. End of discussion. If you don't have a registered trademark, then it's going to be a complicated process for you. Make sure that you have the correct licenses for playing music or radio. So even if there's 2 people in your business, you still have to have a license if you want a bit of music on in the background. Similarly with your software licenses. And that, again, using other people's photographs just kind of reiterates the first point that I made about respecting other people's IP. Check that there's no counterfeit products in your supply chain. Unfortunately, IP crime funds a lot of other crime that can be quite dangerous, so just keep a check on that. Make sure your inventions are kept secret, and make sure you know who owns the IP. If you're collaborating, put it down in writing who's going to own what. It'll make life a lot easier for you in the future. And seek professional advice if applying for a patent. And I think that's it for me. I'll leave this slide up and I'll hand back to Gary if there's any quick questions.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Em. Let me see what's been coming in. Yep, got a few. If you can answer a couple quickly for us then. First of all then is, how long does a trademark last?
Oh yes, sorry. A trademark lasts for 10 years. And you can renew that trademark every 10 years for as long as you want to keep it alive in the business.
Right, okay, I think that's answered that. I think you've covered designs, but it says a question here, how do you register your design in Europe?
Yeah, I covered trademarks. There's a similar process for registering designs in Europe, and that's similar to the trademark process in that you apply through the office in Alicante, and one application will then cover you for the whole of Europe, known as a community design.
Right, okay. Let's see, we've got another one there. Yeah. Any advice with regards to sharing copyright on social media platforms?
Yes, this is a really interesting one, and obviously one that's come up quite a lot in the last few years. Just be aware, if you've got a Facebook business page, anything you share on that, you may be giving away a license to the owners of Facebook. So the advice with anything on social media or any social media channels is to check the terms and conditions of your account. Look for keywords like intellectual property and licensing rights, that kind of thing.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, I think that's all the time we've got. Fine, we're slightly overrunning. If we haven't answered any questions, we will get back to you in the next few days by email. So I'd like to thank Emma for delivering today's presentation. Hope it's been useful to you and give you some insight on how IP fits into your business. And hopefully you're now thinking about what IP you own and how to protect it. So all it remains for me to do is to thank you for joining us. If you have any questions about this or any of the earlier webinars, you can drop us, or you want a copy of any handouts, you can drop us a line at webinars@companyhouse.gov.uk. Don't forget to sign up for the next webinar in this series, which is next Wednesday, which is the Business Support Helpline. So thank you very much for everyone taking part, and we'll see you next time.